Hi, this is Danny Doyle, and I am here for another episode of ranking the Fire Emblem characters, tops, bottoms, etc. And today we are doing all of Fate's Landia. I know many people, myself included, consider Conquest, Revelations, and Birthright to be separate games, but I think in terms of the cast size, it is a very big cast when you combine them, but it feels like too small of a cast if you separate them. And besides, I have one of the foremost Fate experts with me, Blue, so I figured it would just be appropriate to tackle both routes, or I guess technically all three, because there are a few Rev-exclusive units here, just all in one Grand Slam Fates Hullabaloo. So Blue, do you want to tell everyone a little bit more about what you do and where we can find your work?
Yeah, so hello everybody, my name is Blue Cosmic, aka Blue, and I do a lot of Fates content here on YouTube, especially Conquest stuff. Usually just showing off kind of like cool ways you can beat maps, and that kind of thing. For example, I have like a video of getting Perry, like 7 levels on her join chapter just for the hell of it. Just little fun things like that. I also occasionally do videos about fighting games, if you're into that. Stuff like Street Fighter and Guilty Gear, and yeah. I really like Fates, and I really like talking everything about Fates, including the characters and the writing, even if it's questionable sometimes, and yeah. I'm really glad that Danny had me on, and my link to my channel will be in the description.
And you mentioned the Perry video. I feel the need to highlight the most impressive aspect of that is you found a setup to let Perry kill Ryoma that didn't require her getting any levels beforehand, which is kind of incredible.
Yeah, it requires giving her literally every source of damage boosting that you have access to at that point, but you can do it.
But you have a lot. That's the joy of Fates. I think we're probably on the same page in terms of like the thing that I love about Fates is there are a lot of both accuracy and damage boosting sources that you can use to make these really mid units pull off very impressive feats. But yeah, definitely check out their channel. One of the things that I really appreciate is that it doesn't just cover Conquest, because I like 2 of the Fates games, but I appreciate that it is not just Conquest. There's a whole wide world in there. And you probably know the Hoshiden cast better than me, just as a result of Rev and Birthright stuff, which is why I kind of wanted you to take the reins in terms of deciding what order we go in. I've semi-randomized things, but I feel like it's boring just to go in recruitment order, so where does your heart call you in terms of who we're going to be rating first?
So, actually, I was thinking about this earlier, and there is one character in particular who I have a pretty strong opinion about for this list, and a character who I really like. I want to talk about Leo first.
Leo.
Yeah, who you have top left?
Top left?
Yeah, like...
Oh, top left, yeah, this side. I can tell my lefts from rights.
Yeah, so... I don't know how much of a hot take this is gonna be, but I've used Leo a lot, seen a lot of his supports, like him a lot as a character. Leo is the brattiest bottom of all time, okay? I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident in saying that. Leo? Okay. So for anyone who hasn't seen his supports with his support specifically with Azura, Azura basically figures out that he's going to propose to her, like, before he says it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes like, oh, I know what you're gonna say, but I want you to say it anyway. Like, I want to hear you say it. And Leo goes, oh, but that's so embarrassing. You really gonna make me do that? And I'm like, oh my lord. This man.
I mean, from a story perspective, I think it could be very easily argued that he's a service bottom to Corrin. I mean, we kind of have to do the incest stuff. Unfortunately, it's all over Fates. He's not actually Corrin's brother, but also is in love with her and also adopted brother. It's weird and I don't like it.
Yeah.
But his role is very much like doing the stuff Corrin doesn't want to do, and that's a very bottom role to fall into, I would say.
I also think, because there's moments, I believe it's in his sports with Corrin, but also with some other characters, where he talks about how he sort of carries a lot of stress because he's a prince, and like, if anything happens to Xander, he'll have to be the one to lead Nor, and he kind of talks about how like there's a lot of stuff on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And how he wishes he could just relax and not have to be in control of everything all the time. And I think that it's very likely that could extend to the bedroom too, you know?
Yeah, no, to sort of, finally, he's in the one place where he can get a break from being so uptight. Because, again, people make fun of him for it, but I think that he feels that it's kind of his responsibility to be so uptight.
For sure.
Although, since you mentioned the Azura support, look, I'm sorry, it is obviously, a supporter of the Leo Bottom thing, but I also think it's a very strong argument for this.
I agree.
She was getting off on teasing him, right?
Yes, and I think Azura's a top, and I don't think she's, like, an aggressive top, though. I think she just really enjoys, like, she's the type who just really enjoys, like, teasing and, like, stuff, like, getting a rise out of people.
She wants to see you squirm.
Exactly. I think Azura's definitely a top, but, like, it's just not, like, an aggressive one, if that makes sense.
How do you think that impacts her dancing? Like, do you think she's teasing people and that's what gets them to perform an extra action from a gameplay perspective?
That'd be very funny. I don't think that's true, but I do think that for whichever, partner you pair her with, I think she absolutely does do that for them specifically,
And that's where the support bonuses come from? Like the stat boost?
Yeah.
I can buy it. The question would be, does it run in the family? Because I see Arette just sneaking in there.
Arette, yeah, I actually have no idea how her name is pronounced.
Comment below if we said it wrong. Engagement.
Yeah. Arette, I think, probably. Though, I think that she is more of, like, the stereotypically, like, aggressive type in bed. I think she sort of contrasts Azura that way, but I think they are both tops, probably.
She's probably, like, we've coined the term around here of toxic top, where it's the idea of the reason that they're a top is often either, like, for men, like, a unhealthy view of male role, or for men or women or non-binary people, the idea of, like, aggression and domination, but not in a, she's not doing it necessarily because she wants to pleasure her partner through the pain, but because she wants to assert domination, and she gets power that way, and it's a rush. And I don't think that it's necessarily wrong to sort of get a rush from domination, but I do think that first and foremost, it is very much a, consent, both parties need to be enjoying it thing, and I think that Arette kind of doesn't care if it's necessarily the most pleasant thing for the other half. I think she really does just want that power.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad you brought up the whole toxic top thing, because I have another character who I think absolutely fits that description.
Ooh?
And that's Hans. Hans...
Where is he? This isn't Hans, right? This is
bottom right.
The other guy?
Yeah, he's like very bottom right.
Oh, yeah, he's off screen.
Yeah. Hans, so initially I was thinking a lot about some of these characters earlier, and initially I thought Hans was gonna go in like no bitches, but then I remembered, I can't remember if it's like the official manga adaptation or what, but there is an official piece of like side media for Fates that does show that like Hans has a girlfriend.
Well, he's not just one girlfriend, he's polyamorous. Like, his voice actor
that's right,
confirmed
that's right.
he's canonically polyamorous, which, like, not the rep that I would choose for polyamorous representation in Fire Emblem. I'm glad that they acknowledged the existence of polyamorous people. Can we please acknowledge the existence of polyamorous people that aren't complete pieces of garbage?
yeah. But, yeah, so we can't put him in no bitches because he literally does have bitches.
He has bitches,
like,
yeah. He probably calls them that, too.
Also that, yeah, which is why he's a toxic top. It all comes full circle.
Erica has 3 weed-smoking girlfriends, Hans has 3 bitches.
Yeah, exactly.
Where does your heart guide you next? Because I don't have a preference. I can pick someone at random if you would like, but I'm curious for you.
I want to talk about a character who I actually think goes in Ace. And that's Kaze. Kaze, in a lot of his supports, he's a unit who I've used a lot and seen a lot of his supports, because, he's in all 3 routes, and he's good.
He's good in 2 of them, yeah.
Yeah. But Kaze in a lot of his supports shows that, I don't think he's Arrow Ace, because, he does show that, he does show romantic interest in, characters, not just in the S supports, but also in some of the A supports. But in a lot of his supports, he does show that he doesn't really care about physical attractiveness as much as he does just about finding a person who he just enjoys spending time with.
Yeah.
In particular, his support with Camilla is about how a lot of women will sort of flock to him because of his looks and his sort of chill personality, but he just finds it really superficial, and just he doesn't really care that they're beautiful. He wants to find someone who he just enjoys being around.
It's ironic that is the support with Camilla, since her design is very much supposed to be the superficially attractive big butt, big boobs thing. Which maybe, I haven't seen the support. Do they, bond over that? Because that could kind of work.
Yeah, it was, I forget if it's the A or the S support, but Kaze is basically oh, I'm gonna be honest, when I first met you, I thought you were a completely superficial person, but, after talking to you more, I realized you just, you do genuinely care about, the people you love, and that's cool. So yeah, he does kind of go oh, I shouldn't have really judged you based on that. You're I got to know you better, and that's good. So it's not the best support in the world, but it's a support chain I like. Yeah.
I think any support that contains Camilla just can't be the best support in the world. I really don't like her, and it's not even I feel like part of it is, I haven't given her a chance, but her design is very frustrating to me because it is kind of just it's lowest common denominator. And there's nothing wrong with finding a video game character attractive. I just don't, the way that they designed her to clearly try to appeal in very, very superficial ways frustrates me.
Yeah, Camilla kind of, and I suppose we can talk about Camilla next for this list.
We can, yeah.
But the thing that frustrates me about Camilla is that I feel like IS really they really tried to have their cake and eat it too, where a lot of her supports are about how she doesn't try to use her looks to win people over, and how, she genuinely does care about the people she likes. And, she's, and I think, if she had a design that was less explicitly fan servicey, it'd be really good, because I think her character and the way she's written is really good. But then they also gave her the design that she does, and the CG cutscenes where she's very clearly sexualized.
Yeah, I was gonna say the camera's the nail in the coffin, because even her design, if it was intentionally trying to, like, subvert the fan service aspects of her design, I think that could work.
Yeah, but then there's, you know, the birthright cutscene where...
Yeah, you want to talk about cake? We get a good look at hers.
Yeah. So, yeah, they tried to have it both ways, and it didn't work, but...
The ending of Conquest is POV, you smashed into Camilla's boobs. Like, it's really egregious.
Yeah.
Before we rank her, I do want to address, since we did cover our first ace character, and I know there's probably going to be comments about this, yes, he can get married to people. Asexual and aromantic are not the same thing. People who are not, like, who don't have sexual attraction can have romantic attraction, and vice versa. And also, just because he has children doesn't mean that he can't be asexual. It could be magical adoption, or it could just be that because asexuality is a spectrum, he's willing to have sex either to please his partner or reproduce, but doesn't have a sex drive himself. So, just to preempt those comments, because I feel like I've gotten vaguely aphobic comments on every one of these lists, and I want to address it in the video, in that, yes, this character can be ace, and the fact that he gets married and has Midori doesn't change that.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you feel about Camilla, though, in terms of her preferences?
You know, it's weird, because I feel like the immediate reaction that most people would have about Camilla is, like, put her in top, call it a day, like it's obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think it's that straightforward. I think, honestly, she's probably a switch.
I was leaning that way, too. I think that with Corrin, she definitely wants to top, but in other support conversations, I can see the more submissive side of things.
Yeah, I definitely think... I think Camilla's one of those people, definitely, where it's like, they can sort of go either way. It depends on who the other person, like, what the other person is into.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in her support with Niles, for example, which is also just a really good support for Camilla's character in general, but that's, like, a topic for another day. But it's one of the funniest, like, dialogue exchanges in the game, where sort of late, like, at the end of the S support, her and Niles are both being kind of, like, teasing towards each other, and then Niles says something that's, like, pretty overtly sexual, and then Camilla gets, like, surprised by it, and is like, oh my goodness, and he's like, oh, sorry, was that too much? Which I just think is funny. But I could definitely see, like, in a relationship like that, she would bottom, right?
Or so they would sort of do the, like, top competition thing, right? Where, they kind of both want to top, and as a result, they're both willing to bottom.
Yeah, I could see that as well, yeah.
We did mention him. Do we want to just... This, because kind of, like... I know we've been chaining based on supports, and this has kind of locked us into Nor, but we did just bring up Niles. Do we want to tackle him?
Yeah, why not? Niles... I think, like Camilla, the obvious answer is to say top, but unlike Camilla, I think it's also the correct answer.
I can buy that. He feels very, he wears it on his sleeve, right? It's not to say that he's not a complex character. I mean, none of the Fates characters are super complex, but just by virtue of the writing. But there is... It's an oversimplification to say that it's a one-note gimmick character.
Yeah, I think Niles is... I also think Niles is one of the better written characters in the game.
Mm-hmm. But what I mean is that I think it's... He presents himself very authentically. Like, with Camilla, there is sort of that... I won't say depth, because it implies Niles doesn't have any, but there's stuff that you don't get from the initial first impression that I do think is why the first impression is top when that's not necessarily accurate. But with Niles, like, what you see is what you get, and, like, there is depth there, but it's more just, like, the depth is more expanding what we already saw rather than subverting it. He doesn't play any cards close to the... Or he does kind of play a couple of cards close to chest, but none of them are, Yeah, I don't really know how to phrase it, but he's very...
Yeah, I mean, he's very upfront and honest with, like, what he thinks. Like, I mean, for most of his supports are basically like a lot of his C supports are just telling characters like, "Hey, I don't like you, and I'm not going to pretend like I do."
And that's why he's the most relatable Fates character, because he tells the people I don't like that I don't like them.
True. We all wish we could be like Niles in that specific regard. Maybe not in all regards, but in that regard.
Speaking of people that I don't like, I wish I had a thought to finish that sentence. I get annoyed by Setsuna as a unit. Can we talk about her?
Yeah.
I don't dislike her character because I don't really know it. I just think she's a shit unit.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like very few Fates units are redundant, like gameplay-wise, but Setsuna is one of them because she, like, there's just no reason to use her over Takumi for the most part.
If you have Jacob, she benefits from Gentleom. That's something Takumi can't do.
We're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
Does she end up in the bottom of the barrel, or? Because, like, she's klutzy, but that's not necessarily a bottom trait.
No. And I'll admit, I'm not as familiar with Setsuna as some of the other characters in this game. I will say, though, I do think bottom is probably accurate. Setsuna is, from what I know from what I've seen of her supports, is very much sort of like, she likes when other people take initiative and kind of like take the wheel and stuff. The main ones that I remember, of course, being her ones with Azama and Hinoka. Where she really just enjoys, in general, when the others help her and do things like, and like take initiative on things. And I think that it's pretty reasonable to say that that would extend to the bedroom too.
Can I make the most wild, out there, big Bane stretch to try to get her pushed into top?
Go for it.
Her personal ability,
oh boy,
means that she gets 150% of healing from healing staffs, which is a garbage ability, by the way, especially for an archer.
It was garbage for her specifically.
Yeah. But this could be interpreted as her enjoying receiving service and or gifts from others, which is top behavior. Is that too out there? Is that too out there? We can move it to Switch if we want to tie it. Like, say...
No, I just hate that I can see the argument.
I love that you can see the argument, because it's so bad.
You know what? Okay. You've convinced me to put her into Switch.
Okay.
I think.
We can... This is the Switch haircut now. One eye available.
Yeah.
Niles doesn't count because his eye is an eye patch, not a hair. How many Fates characters can you only see one eye of? Are we just... There's a lot of them,
I'm looking
actually.
down there. I see Shigure. I see Perry. I see... who else? I could...
Do we want to talk about the trans rights murder girl, then?
Oh, God. Let's... Why? Yeah, we should talk about the trans rights murder girl. Perry... I don't know. I'm not gonna go on a whole rant, but I will say I just find Perry very funny when people talk about her, because people say that they don't like her because her being like in the Norian army like destroys world building stuff, and like she hurts other characters by virtue of like them accepting her for being a murderer. And I just always look at that and I'm like, you are taking this plot far too seriously than the writers ever did.
Also, like, I could kind of, even though they're taking it too seriously, I could kind of see the, like, oh, Xander would never accept her thing, right? But the Norian army?
Yeah,
hello?
Hans, Niles,
hello?
Iago.
Hello?
Yeah, a lot of the Norian army is pretty full of weirdos, so...
Like, maybe Xander wouldn't have made her his royal guard or whatever. Sure, I can buy that. I still think you're taking it too seriously. Like, I tend to agree with you in that, it feels like a lot of the anger over Fates' plot sucking is directed at Perry and Corin, when it should just be the plot.
Yeah. When it comes to Perry, you know, I want to say, part of me wants to say top, and part of me wants to say switch.
Top feels like the obvious answer, but, like, it feels wrong, too. Sorry, I interrupted you. What were you saying?
No, I mean, that is also what I think. Because, on one hand, in a lot of Perry's supports, it kind of shows that, like, she does really like being in control of things, like, happening around her. Mm-hmm. But also, there are definitely supports where I'll just say, like, she does things that would be labeled as, like, bottom behavior.
She's very pouty.
Yeah, so I could see her being, like, a very bratty bottom, too. Like
in, actually, I think I think she might be more bottom than switch. Because, like, I haven't done a deep dive into her support pool, but I have used her as a unit, because even though she's, like, mid, I think it is fun, and I like the cotton handy hair thing. Mm-hmm. And the lines she gives during various pair-up attacks are so pouty. Like, her death quote is, "I was gonna do that to you!" And if someone kill steals from her, she's like, "No fair! That was mine!"
Yeah. And also, like, she does, like, the very... I guess it's never confirmed to be fake, but I always interpreted it as, like, a fake cry. Mm-hmm. Like, when she gets mad about something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, whether it's fake or real, I think that fits the bottom narrative. Like, either she gets actually crying, or she, like, fakes it for bottom reasons.
Yeah, so actually... No, you've convinced me, and I've convinced myself that she's in bottom.
I think this is our hottest take, and I think what it is people are transferring the fact that she murders people and seeing that as an act of domination, but, like, that's all outside of the bedroom. I don't think she's an executrix. I think she just, you know, she likes murdering people, that's one hobby, and then she likes being a little bratty bottom, and that's the other one. And she can keep those compartmentalized.
This has nothing to do with Perry. Well, they have a support, but it doesn't really have much to do with Perry. But I do want to talk about Felicia next.
Sure.
So Felicia is interesting because I feel like she's either ace or she is allosexual, but has a lot of, like, nervousness and insecurity about, like, her performance in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. Which, like, hey, if you're one of those people, like, that's very fair. But I'm not sure if I'd say ace. I feel like if she's not ace, she's absolutely a bottom, right?
Yeah, it's one or the other. She could be both. Like, you know, not all ace people are sex repelled. She could easily fit into both. We made these as sort of, like, strict categories, but it's worth acknowledging there's some overlap between them.
Yeah. But I think... I think ace is probably correct, though. Like, that's sort of... Or that, at the very least, like, that's... Like, at the end of the day, I feel like this tops and bottoms, kind of, these lists are very much, like, a lot of it is just, like, vibes. And,
yeah,
like,
a lot of it's vibes and headcanons. The other thing is, like, you know, if you headcanon something different than this, that's completely fine.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you just really, really like the idea of Ace Perry, right? Because Perry's your favorite character and you're Ace and you see traits of yourself in her, don't let us tell you that that's not the case. You know, this is all just for fun and vibes, and we do kind of explain our reasoning, but we are not sacrosanct in terms of that. And if you think that someone else, either because you relate to them or like them, or just interpret it differently than us, that's completely fine. Especially, like, I had someone say, like, oh, I see a lot of my own traits in this. I'm disappointed you put them in a different category than me. And I'm like, that's the last thing I want, is, like, it to step on anyone else's headcanon, right? Especially if it's, like, something relating to yourself and how you view yourself and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, there is a character who shares my name, so I'm just going to go ahead and, based on that, put her there, because Danny outed as a top now. That's the entire logic, and you can't argue against it. She has my name, so she gets my rank.
To be fair, from, like, the 2 lines of dialogue she has, that is fair, I think.
She has, like, the vicious blow thing, the wyvern skill, as a, what is it called, strategist? It's the troubadour equivalent. Or the Valkyrie equivalent.
Yeah, the Valkyrie equivalent of
troubadour
traits,
promotion. I don't know anything about this character, other than that, you capture her and she's, like, pretty okay, kind of. Like, she's 4 levels from inspiration, but also you capture her after you have Ryoma, so it doesn't matter. Like, I hate saying that, it is kind of dismissive, but it is also kind of true.
Yeah, also she has there's a very funny animation glitch. You, put her in Dark Flyer.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, because I think she has a unique model? I'm not sure. But there's like this weird thing where it's like, because normally capturables, they can only reclass into, like, the other promotion option of their, like, class tree, so, like,
yeah.
Normally it's like Daniela's only class option is,
Maid, right?
Yeah, it's Maid. But I think you can still use DLC items on them, like, you can still turn her into a witch or Dark Flyer or something. And I'm pretty sure she has, like, there's, like, this weird animation glitch she has with her model if you put her into Flyer. I don't know why.
Funny.
But yeah.
I do know that there is one capturable who you can't use the DLC items on, or the second seal, and that's Candace, because they didn't want to make new models, because Candace is the only fat character in Fates, which once you hear that, you notice it, not just in Fates, but in a lot of video games, they just, like, everyone is thin. But because Candace is the only fat character, she can't ever go Bow Knight, she's always an adventurer, because they didn't want to make a second model, because a lot of the models, the way that they work in terms of reclassing and stuff, is, like, a lot of stuff is very wireframe, right? But obviously Candace's body type is just very different. How do you think that affects her in the bedroom? How does she channel the rage at not being able to mount a horse? Oh, no, I didn't mean that. Oh, shit, that sounded really fat-phobic. I just meant because she can't reclass. I just meant she can't reclass. It wasn't a weight thing.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't even interpret it that way until you pointed it out, that it could be interpreted that way. She can mount a horse, just not a literal one, let's put it that way.
Yeah, she just can't go Bow Knight. She's only allowed to go riding as, like, a hobby. She can't bring it to the battlefield, which is very rude. Medea, yes. I demand justice for Candace.
I think, like a lot of the paralog bosses, we don't really get a ton. What we do get, though, definitely does make me want to say top, because she sort of, she has a very, like, sort of like an overconfidence thing. Where I think her boss quote, like her quote when you first enter combat with her, is something along the lines of, like, oh, I'm surprised you caught up with me, but you'll never be able to take me down.
Which is so funny because it's the easiest one turn in the world.
Yes. But also, like, her death quote is like, or not death, I don't think she actually dies, but her defeat quote is like, you beat me? You defeated me? How is this possible? Like, she's very, very much overconfident. So, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if she was sort of like that kind of toxic top kind of thing as well.
Oh,
Where,
for
like,
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Where would you like to, in this big dartboard of units, jump next?
Let's see here.
We could go with another bow unit that doesn't get much in the way of character depth in Reyna.
Yes, a unit and character who I actually like quite a bit.
I like her as a unit. I like her less as a character. But you can, since you like her as a character, I will hand you.
Yeah, I think actually Reyna's sort of in the same boat as Azura, I think. Where she talks a lot about, murder and stuff and, like, glory on the battlefield and all that, but it's not really the same as Perry. And she talks about how in her support with Corrin, how she always wanted to, like, fight for Hoshido. And it's not any sort of, like, murder obsession thing. She just genuinely really likes fighting just for the fun of it and for, like, serving her country.
Is it like a Obero level of racism thing, or I mean?
No, she doesn't. I don't think she ever says anything negative about Norians. So it's no sort of, like, racism thing. It's just that she just wants to help her country, and also she's the Queen's retainer, Mikoto's retainer before she dies.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she even talks in her, I think it's her A support with Corrin, how, like, she really, like, genuinely cared about Mikoto as, like, a friend and stuff, and, like...
Oh, just a friend?
Well, that's what she said. That's what the writers say.
We
can speculate. But I definitely think she's sort of in the Azura boat of, like, a top, but less of... definitely not any sort of... I don't think any sort of a... I think it's much more of just, like, she likes to be in control. She likes to do what she wants to do as long as, like, her partner's...
Yeah. So you're breaking up a little bit. I'm gonna pause real quick to see if I can figure out what's going on technical difficulties-wise. So we will be right back.
I wanted to make a funny Simpsons joke here, but the 5 seconds of music got copyright claimed. This is just like the plot to Sonic Heroes. Well, now I'm going to make the TikTok lady say boner.
All right, we are back. Thank you for bearing with me. There was a storm, so we had to take a little bit of a break, but we lined up a few characters to talk about so that we won't have to spend time thinking. We sort of, like, semi-randomized them. And Blue, you said you wanted to talk about Arthur next, so I'm going to hand it off to you.
Yeah, so Arthur is very funny to me in the context of this list, because I feel like with a lot of the ace characters, it's very much like you sort of just get the vibe where it's like, yeah, they just really have an interest in sex, or, like, they're not, they just don't really enjoy it. With Arthur, I think that he's ace, but for the reason that I don't think that he's ever had a sexual thought in his life. I think Arthur is just too dedicated to, obviously, like, the whole justice thing, but also to just, like, cultivating friendships and, like, helping people. I don't think I think he would have sex with his partner if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has any drive to initiate it or to do it, like, for himself.
I like to imagine that the reason, like, I would not have read Arthur as ace until you explained that. However, with that in mind, I like to imagine that the reason Arthur had sex with whoever he S supports was specifically because he wants to be able to produce a sidekick to help him in justice. Like, he explicitly was like, I need, not Percy specifically, but I need someone that ends up being Percy. And only my own offspring can be dedicated enough to justice.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know. It's funny because a lot of the Fates characters, I can say, like, after reading a lot of the supports, they're not quite as... Most of them aren't quite as, like, cartoonish and one-dimensional as a lot of people, like, say that most of the cast is.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, there's no denying that, like, yeah, Arthur's written to be, like, a cartoon character. Which is fine, but, like, that's what he is, you know?
I mean, I've been on record as, like, my favorite moments and characters are the ones who are very cartoonish. Even if they're, like, like, Odin does have some serious moments, but I think he feels like the cartoon character had a serious episode in those moments. And I love that. Like, I love the goofy cartoon character guys. Slightly less goofy is Xenophobia. That was certainly a transition I chose to use.
That was a transition phrase.
Where the fuck are we putting this bitch? I don't like her. I like her as a unit. I don't like her as a character.
That is fair. I think Oberolf goes pretty firmly into bottom. Even, like, it's pretty obvious, like, in her fantasizing about, like, Takumi, which is, like, one of her things.
Mm-hmm.
But also just in general, Obero is, like...
Look at the expression on her face. I feel like that is a selling point on the bottom scale.
Yes. He has a lot of really good expressions, by the way.
That's why I like using her as a character.
Yeah, she has some of the best sprites. But also, like, yeah, I feel like her, a lot of the time in her supports and stuff, when she's not talking about how much she hates Nor, or, like, how much she likes fashion, she is very much, like, being down bad for Takumi, or whoever she happens to be as supporting at the time. And, I think a lot of Obero's behavior is bottom behavior, when it's not xenophobia.
Does she do the Cordelia thing, where, like, Cordelia's always in love with Crom no matter who, and Tharja's always in love with Robin no matter who? Like, does she do that with Takumi? I've never S-supported her.
So, the main S-support with Obero that comes to mind for me is Hinata, because, like, they're retainers together.
Yeah. It's a fast support, too.
Yeah, and it's a fast support. And from what I remember, what she says to Hinata... Because Hinata's like, oh, you always had a crush on Takumi, like, is that still true? And she's like, well, I do still admire him, and, like, I still think he's, like, a good-looking person and all that, but, like, I've realized now that, like, I'd rather be with you. So it's, like, it's not like she's always in love with, like, or always wants to be with him, like, it does change.
I honestly prefer that. I like it when there's characters who have the unrequited love thing, like Tharja and Cordelia. But I hate that because now the characters have to be able to S-support other people, I hate that those S-supports are like, they're overtly telling their spouse, I'm settling for you. I'd rather be with Robin.
Yeah, for sure.
It really makes whoever you S-support them feel like they have, like, absolutely no self-esteem, which... works for some characters, but since they have to S-support the entire cast, like, I would believe that Stahl is fine with Tharja settling for him. But, like, yeah, I like the approach that they took with Obero. Not to get sidetracked by Awakening. We'll cover Awakening eventually. Or maybe I already have. I record these very far in advance. Yeah, we can get sidetracked by her. Now, you off camera, you were sharing some thoughts about Soleil. Would you like to elaborate on that? Because I haven't dove in as deep into her as you have.
Yeah, so Soleil, I won't go too much into my opinion on how she's written. Basically, outside of the weird gross stuff, I really like her. And I think in terms of in the bedroom, I would say most likely a switch.
I was leaning that way.
Because I could definitely see her being more dominant with, like, someone, but I could also see her making, like, step on me jokes, you know? Like, being one of those people, and, like, other, like, very bottom kind of things. I could see her kind of going either way, depending on what the other person is like.
The biggest reason why I feel like she's a switch is because she feels like she's down for whatever makes the other person happier. Like her,
that's also very true.
A lot of her big thing is like positivity, and there are some cool, again, without the gross stuff, there's some really cool supports from what I've seen with her talking about how, like, she always maintains positivity, but then, like, the idea of she can't be positive in the face of everything. It's sort of goes counter to, I've heard the toxic positivity thing, and I feel like it's not necessarily invalid to say that it deals with those themes, but I do think that it is an oversimplification to label her as that, since she goes into the, like, the shortcomings of even her and her father talking about, like, you know, I always want to be positive for you, but I can't. And he's like, well, it's okay not to be at all times.
And even her recruitment conversation when Laszlo talks to her during her paralogue, she basically says, like, oh, you know, me and my men are, like, here fighting off these brigands, and it's really tough, and I'm not sure if we're gonna make it. And Laszlo is basically like, if you want to give your men morale, you can smile and, you know, be positive even if you're a little afraid. And, like, and that is sort of a lot of her supports, is just, like, wanting to make the other person happy.
She's a people pleaser.
Yeah, and so I feel like she could I feel like she is, like you said, a switch in that sense, where if the person she's into is more dominant, she'll bottom for them, and if the person she's into is more submissive, she'll top for them, you know?
Unrelated, but who does Laszlo need to fuck for her to get this hair color? Because I love this hair color on her. Is that just a MU thing?
Felicia can do it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Felicia Soleil is really bad.
Yeah, that sounds awful. That sounds so awful.
Also, what is it? If you have, like, Effie Twiddler or any other save editor,
you can give them the default hair, or whoever's hair.
Yeah, you can just save edit it because it's in there. She also has the pink hair by default in Heirs of Fate because it's her grandmother Olivia's hair, which is why it's the default for her.
And Corrin isn't a bad parent for anyone, and you can always just give Corrin pink hair.
Yeah.
On that topic, like, Corrin's the self-insert, so you could arguably put them in any of these. I do think that, to an extent, like, Corrin is probably ace. Maybe this is me stereotyping. I mean, I am an ace person myself, but maybe this is, like, the naivete bleeding into it, but I feel like Corrin is less concerned with sex than necessarily, like... it could be people pleaser switch as well, but I think she's more interested in, like, cultivating these close relationships because she's been isolated for her entire life, or most of it at least.
I think that is definitely true. I think Corrin probably does care about cultivating friendships in general more than, like, any sort of romantic or sexual relationship. I will say, though, I don't necessarily think that makes them ace, you know?
That's fair. That's fair.
I think they're probably... Like, my first thought was to put them into Switch. Just sort of by the logic of, like... Because... Not necessarily even because they're self-insert, but because they have so many supports with so many other units.
Yeah.
Or with literally every unit.
And oftentimes she ends up playing straight man to other people's gimmicks.
Yeah.
Is it controversial to say that Corrin's supports are usually the worst of each character's support chain?
I wouldn't say... Well... I mean, I don't think it's controversial. Whether it's correct or not, I don't necessarily
Yeah, it's
think
another
they're
discussion,
the worst.
right?
Yeah, I don't think they're the worst. I think they're usually more on the bland side.
Yeah.
But I
They're
don't know, there's some
inoffensive.
nice
Well,
ones.
other than the person she's next to, they're usually inoffensive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Olivia's hair. That's why I like it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's her grandma.
Yeah, that's actually really cute. I like that.
It is. Yeah.
Speaking of cute, Silas, I'm sure some people think he's cute.
I'm sure some people too. I'm not one of them.
Yeah, me neither,
whatever.
but I also am not into men, so that's part
Yeah.
of it.
Well, Silas is...
It's weird, right?
Right,
Like-
I feel Silas...
He feels like he should be in no bitches despite demonstrably being able to get many, many women.
Yeah.
And I also don't necessarily know that insulting him like that, like, it's so weird. Maybe he
Silas-
also ends up in Switch.
Maybe. I feel like for Corrin... Okay, I think if you pair him with Corrin specifically, I think he's probably, like, in that relationship, probably the bottom.
Yeah.
Also, this is somewhat related, but I definitely think that Silas should have been a romance option for both Corrins. I think it makes so much sense.
No, I can read that.
Yeah. But anyways,
He literally
I think that-
abandoned his country to join her in Birthright. And Red,
Yeah.
actually. Both of them.
Yeah. I think he goes in bottoms in that relationship specifically. I think in general, I actually think it's most likely that he's in the same boat as Arthur, where I think he's very, like, sex neutral, if that makes sense. Like, he doesn't
Yeah.
really care one way or the other.
I can see that.
Like, yeah, but, like, if his partner wants to, then, like, he's more than, like, okay with it.
I can buy that, yeah.
Especially because in a lot of his non-Corrin supports, he's very, like... He's, like, very supportive and very, like, trying to help people, but he's never really, like... I don't know. A lot of his S supports are less, like... I find you super attractive, and more just, like... I just really like you as a person and want to be with you forever. But, like,
Yeah.
not even... I don't know.
Just companionship more than romance, I would say.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
more.
pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I feel like it's more like. Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's more like, oh, like we'll get married because why not? Like that's what people do, but not like.
It's just the next natural step.
Yeah.
I did want to tackle Rinka just because Muscle Woman Uwu.
Go for it.
Obvious choice is obvious, but sometimes it's obvious for a reason. Like, I think people want Rinka to step on them, and she wants to step on them. Like,
Yeah,
I feel like
with
this is
Rinka,
just-
there's not too much to say other than like, tall muscle lady is tall muscle lady, but also like that's more than fine, you know.
you don't need to be the most complex character, right? Sometimes you just are a muscle lady, and like the sort of people who are into you are also the sort of people who you are into.
And sometimes you're a muscle lady with a 20% strength growth.
It's so tragic. It's really tragic. In Heartseal Swap, she gets... So, it's not just her strength growth, it's her bases. Because in Heartseal Swap, she gets turned into a ninja, and after one round of combat with the Faceless, she has a 0 strength stat, because they do the
Seal
reducing...
strength.
Yeah, Seal Strength.
That is, yeah.
It's really tragic.
I like the idea they were going for because they were trying to subvert the expectation of like, oh, muscle lady, like muscle character has high strength because her highest growth is defense,
Yeah.
which also makes sense and that's cool. But then also like she's not good as a tank because her HP base is really bad.
Hey, that's the GBA Armor Knight problem.
Yeah, I mean she basically is just a 5-move armor knight with axes.
Do we want to talk about a 5-move Armor Knight?
Yeah, why
Ignatius?
not?
Like,
Ignatius.
I've used this unit once, and I can't remember anything other than he's kind of a coward? Or is that just Benny that's a coward?
No, that's Ignatius, yeah. I'm using Ignatius actually in my current Conquest playthrough, because it's part of a draft, and I did draft him. And that's nice, because this is only, like, the second time I've used him, so it's been nice getting to revisit his supports. I actually did, his mother is Corrin, actually.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I gave him orange hair. He looks really good with it.
I really like his design, just in general, regardless of the hair color.
Yeah. But yeah, he's sort of like, his whole thing is like, he's sort of scared of a lot of things, but ultimately, like, will step up, like, when people need his help, you know? Like, he's more he's brave for others, but, like, not for himself.
Yeah.
I like him. He's nice, but in terms of this list, I honestly want to say he's sort of like a, I'm leaning bottom.
I was gonna go there as well. Again, it feels obvious, but sometimes it's obvious for a reason.
Yeah, I feel like Ignatius is very much like, I don't think he really enjoys, like, being dominated as much as he just enjoys, like, being able to make his partner feel good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily about dominated. Like, look, top-bottom switch ace is often used in conjunction with kink, but it doesn't have to be. Like, sometimes you're just the more passive of the people, and you want the other person to take control, but not in, like, a tie-me-up way, just in a, like, hey, you lead and I'll follow. And I think that, like, as someone who, I was actually only recently diagnosed with anxiety, I can relate to the idea of, like, just being anxious about things and wanting other people to lead. Not necessarily in the bedroom, but I think for him, it likely does carry over there, because it seems like a big part of his, like, it's almost all of his gimmick, which is cool. You know, it's generic to be like, hey, the big strong guy is actually scared of everything, but, you know, it's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, speaking of which, why don't we, like, talk about his dad as well?
Yeah, because that's the other one. It's the big strong guy as a teddy bear. I love Benny. I wish he wasn't shit. He's so bad.
He's one of the weaker Gen 1 units, yeah.
But I do love him as a character. I use him all the time just because I like him as a character.
Yeah, Benny's very... Have you seen that video where he, like, doubles chapter 25 Ryoma?
Yeah, in 0% too.
In 0%, yeah. Very funny.
He's so lovable though.
Yeah, if that isn't like a Fates gameplay moment, I don't know what is. Of just like stat stack your way to victory. But yeah. I really like Benny too. I think Benny I think it's kind of easy to say top, sort of in the same vein of like Reyna or Azura. I actually think Benny, though, is probably Switch.
I thought you were gonna say it's easy to say Switch, because I don't read top at all. Like, maybe this is a me thing, but I just think he's not necessarily people pleaser. Like, no, I think people pleaser is the right word for it. I think he's just like, he's lovable and he wants to love others, even if he is, you know, the gentle giant and also very quiet. Like, he's not super out there, but
right. I think some people might argue top just because in battle specifically, he is very much like scary. Like, if you remember his crit quotes and like specifically the way the voice actor delivers him, he's like he's like very aggressive and like intimidating.
Oh, that's fair. That is his personal skill too, is the intimidating presence.
Yeah.
And the portrait for when he's going to kill someone, where he's like yelling. I think it's a raw portrait. I love it.
No, I love it. He has really good expressions too.
I've always interpreted that as he's fighting really hard to protect the people he cares about, rather than for the joy of fighting itself. But that is, it's obviously just one interpretation.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I also think, like, I think he's a people-pleasing Switch, right? Like, I
Yeah,
think, like,
oh no,
that's
absolutely.
always how I've sort of read it.
Yeah, when I say people pleasing, I mean, like, he can bottom to please people or top to please people.
Yeah.
Like, he has that lion in him. You see the crit quotes and the faces.
Yeah. God, I wish Benny was better.
Me too. Me too. He's not even good in Heartsteel Reversal is the tragic part.
Oh yeah, because he's just a fighter.
Yeah. Who is this? I don't recognize this.
This is, I believe her name is Layla. She is an NPC who appears for one scene in one route.
Oh, is she the Garens of Increasing Discomfort?
Yes, she's the dancer who is supposed to perform at the Opera House before Azura steps in to, like, do it instead.
Mm-hmm.
She has, like, 2 lines of dialogue. I think the Who tier is...
It's made for her.
Yeah.
This is the guy who kills Soleil's men, right?
No, this is the guy who kidnaps Forrest. This is Gazak.
Oh, Gazak. You go to Forest Paralog to recruit him.
Yes. Fun fact, has a higher HP growth than any of the actual non-capturable units.
That's
like,
very
HP
funny.
Growth than, yeah.
Do we have a read on him? Like, is it no bitches just because kidnapping isn't based?
I think so. I don't even think it's a Hans thing. Because at least Hans has, like, status.
Mm-hmm.
Gazak is just, like, a random, like, brigand.
Yeah, which is very mean and very rude.
Yeah.
We've been kind of going in order, but is there something that draws to you in this mass of peoples?
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at Charlotte right now.
Oh, she's right here. Yes.
I think Charlotte... First of all, I think Charlotte is sort of like, in a way, what they should have done with Camilla. Because Charlotte is, like, actually a subversion of expectations with her design.
Yeah.
And with her, like, first impressions.
Mm-hmm.
I like Charlotte a lot, actually. She's a really fun character. I 100% think she goes into bottom, though.
I can see it.
Because, like, when you actually... Like, she... Obviously, like, when she puts down, like, the guys,
yeah,
she's, like, very aggressive in battle, very rude, outspoken, but in a lot of her S supports, she's very much, like... Especially the main one I remember is Xander, because that pairing is, like, very meta, but... in her pairing with Xander, she's basically like... Yeah, marrying you would be good for money, because you're, you know, the prince and all that, but also... Like, at this point, I don't want to do it for the money, I want to do it for you, and she's very, like, genuine, and...
Yeah.
I feel like, that version of Charlotte, like, that... one that we see in the S supports is, like, the real, is, like, the most true to her.
Yeah, like, there's 2 masks, right? Like, you see one mask comes off in battle, but then the other mask only comes off when she trusts someone. Like, it's it's underneath the second one, right? If that makes sense?
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you really get down to it, yeah, I think she's in the bedroom with who she trusts the most. I think she's more of a bottom than anything.
On the topic of masks, we have a Nankos on here, and basically a living mask, and also living dragon, and also person. For some reason, they have the mask and the orb on Tier Maker, but not... you said there's, like, a face that goes to him in Heirs of Fate, right?
Yeah, in Heirs of Fate, he has, like, a humanoid appearance, where it's basically, like... the hooded figure that Ryoma fights in Chapter 5, except you can see under the hood that he has the blue hair, like that Azura and Shigure has, because he's...
Yeah.
It's cool, and it's weird that they, like, don't use that portrait anywhere in the main game.
Yeah,
but...
I don't know. It's,
Anyways,
the story's kind of incomplete. Hottest take, I know. But parts of the story feel very incomplete.
I think he has to just buy the cannon, go into no bitches, right?
Oh, I was gonna say Ace. I can see
That
either, actually, though.
too. I mean, I guess it could be both.
The reason I
Like, he could
hesitate
be-
for no bitches is he makes someone his bitch.
That's true.
He certainly makes someone his bitch. Not
don't
in
know,
a romantic or sexual sense, but...
The reason I get the vibe I get from Anankos is like celibate, but not in like the incel sense.
Yeah.
But in the sense that like he literally just does not care about sex and you couldn't ever make him. He's just too concerned about it, like everything.
Is Anankos canonically related to Aret, Azura, and Shigure, and by extension Corrin, or am I misremembering?
No, I think you're getting that confused with Grima because they're Robin, who's Valadar's kid.
Yeah.
No, Anankos is not related to Corrin or Azura.
Okay, in that case, I think this is safe, right?
Yeah, it's just like he basically just like he's like an old god who just shows up to Vala one day and like kills everyone.
Oh, so he's not a Valite. I thought he was. I thought he was like the old king of Vala, which is why I thought he was related to Azura. The lore is...
Maybe,
why do I try to understand the lore here? I don't care. Why do I try?
The writers didn't think about it as deep
so
as
why
we
should
have.
we?
Yeah, but if he's related, it's like very distant.
I dragged Daddy up here because of the idea that he was Anankos' bitch. Does he also end up in no bitches?
I think the answer is no, because they make it very clear that, like, before he was corrupted by Anankos, he was, like, actually a really nice guy, and, like, a really nice king and dad.
I mean,
and
they say
Xander,
that, but, like, it's not demonstrated anywhere.
It's not, but I feel like that's less so... I don't think it's because it's not true. I think that's just because the writing of Fates is the writing of Fates.
It's really lazy, yeah.
Like Xander repeatedly, like, Xander's whole thing, across all the routes, is like, oh, but he was such a kind father growing up, even if he's clearly very evil, still going to stand by his side and all that.
I don't fully necessarily, again, this feels like a reading more into it than the writers do, but I do want to put forward a theory I've heard. Is that Xander is responding the way that many victims of parental abuse do, in terms of justifying and rewriting history in order to make it not as bad, because that's how you cope.
Yeah.
And I'm not endorsing this theory because I actually don't know where I stand on it, mostly because at the end of the day, I think it's a poorly written story. I don't feel that making it about abuse makes it any better. It is at the very least an interesting interpretation. Whether or not it's true or you agree with it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, what it is that Garen was a good guy before. Mm-hmm. And the writers are trying to get across the idea that it's all Anankos' fault. They just do a really bad job of showing the player anything to demonstrate it.
You would think that, like, they have Takumi's ghost talk to you at the end of Conquest. Garen is also dead. You would think they could at the very least have Garen's ghost talk to you. Like, if they wanted to give you the good guy Garen.
Especially because they do have one of those, like, ghosts talking to you scenes at like, in Birthright Endgame as well.
Yeah,
because,
and,
Elise...
and Rev, too. Like, you talk to the resurrected version of Sumeragi and Aret, and get sort of, like, closure with them, right? And Makoto, too.
Yes.
Which, again, like, I think most of the scenes are poorly written, but, like, they exist, and they flesh out the characters a little bit.
Yeah. It's really weird that Garen...
He's just not in Rev, actually. He's just up... He never goes down the canyon.
Yeah, he literally shows up at Endgame just to, like, get absorbed by Anankos.
Yeah, you don't fight him. It's so weird.
Well, like, the Norian siblings, they, like, are shocked when Anankos, like, absorbs him, but they have no time to, like, react to it. And then after you kill Anankos, like, they don't talk about how they just watched their dad die.
Gunter gets more screen time as, like, the big villain than Garen does in Revelations.
And he only gets one chapter as the big villain.
I know, it's so weird.
Fates writing.
We've talked about the Fates writing for way too long, though. Where do we want to put him? We don't even need to justify it. Just name a tier. I'll put him there.
I don't know. Throw him into top and be done with it. I don't know.
Okay. We brought up Xander. Would you like to tackle the elephant prince in the room, or...
Yeah, I think Xander... I feel like there's two, like, main interpretations that most people would have.
Mm-hmm.
Those being, Ace and Top.
We could put him in top because it'll piss people off who don't like the Xander Perry pairing.
True.
Because then he could be her top.
Yes. I just don't see Xander bottoming. Like, I just don't see it.
I think that he might think it's beneath him.
Maybe. I don't even think it would be that, though. I think it's just, he just wants... I think he just likes the dominance, but not even in a toxic way. Like, just that's his preference.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah.
I dragged Sumeragi up here because I think he got brought up at one point as well. Do you have any thoughts on him? Like, he's kind of a nothing character. I did say we get a little scene with him and it fleshes him out, but then I, like, was thinking about that, and does it really? Like, it's so poorly written, really. It's kind of just like, I'm so sad that we had to kill our dad.
Yeah, it's very, like, generic.
Who?
Yeah, who, honestly.
Like, it feels weird because she is not a who. I'm going to adjust my formatting as well, but...
Yeah, though, I don't see her. Is Mikoto on here?
It doesn't look like she is, actually.
Oh, no, she is. She's between Selena and the Ophelia boss. Like, in the middle, kind of, though, right?
Here-ish? Oh, yeah, there she is, yeah.
I was gonna say, I mean, if we can come to a conclusion on one, we might be able to on the other, you know?
Yeah.
Or we could just put them
because
both
they
in
are
who.
related. They are related. Well, we do get more Makoto stuff. Well, so they're... Because she's only one of his wives, right? So...
Yes, because Korin...
she's
Korin's mother, but not the mother of any of the Hoshiden kids.
I thought every single royal had a different mother, right?
No.
Is that
those
just
are
the Norians? Okay.
That's the Norians, yeah. The Hoshidans all have the same mom who is not named Mikoto comes in and marries Sumeragi, like, after Sakura.
Okay.
Born.
And then Korin is Makoto's kid?
Yes, because Makoto's from Vala.
Oh, Makoto's from Vala?
Yes, because
I'm learning
she's
so much
Aret's,
about this game.
Yes, because she's Aret's sister, which makes Korin and Azura first. Which is especially funny because with the Norians, they spend so much time trying to justify Korin being able to S-support them.
Yeah.
And then Korin can just S-support their first cousin anyway.
Yeah. It's a fucking mess. And not only that, but the game pushes you to try to S-support Azura. Both because, like, she's a big plot character, and also because, like, her S-support is the only one that is meaningfully different across routes. Like, she gives lore dumps in all three of them, right?
It's not just the S-support.
It's the whole chain, right?
All of her support levels are different between the three routes.
Yeah, I guess I meant the support chain, and I said S-support, but, like, if you want to get the full lore dump, you do need to marry her 3 times, and that's not true of anyone else, which is so weird. Like, I don't know. I get it. It's medieval cousin marriage stuff happens, like, see FE4.
Especially between people with royal blood.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm still uncomfortable with it.
That's very fair. I think Mikoto...
Do you think she's a bottom or ace? I feel like I get both of those vibes from her.
Yeah, I want to say... Okay, here's my thought. I think Mikoto is ace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Sumeragi is a top, but Mikoto just doesn't want to have sex, and Sumeragi's, like, more than fine with respecting that. You know, like that kind of thing.
No, I can buy that. Especially since, like, her only kid is Corrin, and that was kind of like a weird situation too. Where like, isn't there some weirdness around Corrin in terms of? Oh no, that's Azura, right? Azura is the result of asexual reproduction, or is Aret? I thought that there was some asexual reproduction that happens to cause someone in that family.
If there is, I'm unaware.
We can move on from it because I don't feel like exploring that.
The depths of the Fates lore. That's fair.
Speaking of lore characters.
Oh boy.
I mean, so she's
really
definitely a
weird,
bottom,
Scarlet...
right? Like she's got the yearning thing for Ryoma.
I'm thinking like, yes, bottom, specifically like power bottom.
Yeah.
I think.
Is it weird that like from her design, I expected her to be butch lesbian?
I mean, hey, that's fair. And honestly, if IS was more based, she probably would be.
If IS was more based, she'd be able to marry Ryoma as well. Like, forget butch lesbian. She could just be a butch bisexual. Like,
yeah.
It's so frustrating to me that they don't have... If you don't want to give them an S support, fine, whatever. Give them a chain.
Yeah. I'll make the joke here because I make the joke anytime Scarlet's brought up. Really weird how Scarlet is only playable on one route.
Is the joke that it's in Rev?
Yeah, no, the joke is that her only route is Birthright.
Oh, okay. I thought the joke was going to be that...
it may as well be the truth.
I thought the joke was going to be that the only route is Rev because in Birthright she's overshadowed by the existence of her husbando.
I mean, true, but I also think, like, in terms of... Not that anyone genuinely cares about Birthright meta, but if we're gonna talk about Birthright meta, I think Scarlet is one of the better units in the game.
Yeah, no, she's very usable. I used her for a bit in 0%, but then eventually it just became the Ryoma solo.
Yeah, well, because her bases are really good, and then out of all the Corrin sexual, like, pre-promotes, her growths are actually pretty good, too.
Yeah, well, and she's got a good class line. Like, Wyvern's nice.
Yeah, especially in Birthright, where she's the only one. So, like, yeah. But anyways,
speaking of the only person in Birthright, where do we think the Lobster Lord goes?
That's a good question. I don't know why. This is just, like, first thought, like, vibes, right?
Yeah.
I want to say Switch.
Ooh. I can dig it.
Because I think that, I think he is someone who usually, like, ends up topping, but not because, like, I feel like he would bottom, but it has to be right, like the right person, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's, like, something... I married him to Camilla once in Rev.
I feel like I always do the cross-royal pairings when I play Rev.
Yeah. Well, I do Ryoma Xander when I play Rev, but that's just because they complement each other really well.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, you know, they're perfect boyfriends.
True. But also, I feel like I remember something in the Camilla support that would, like, be evidence of him, like, you know, like, I feel, and also just vibes. Like, I feel like Ryoma could bottom for someone if it was, like, the right person.
That is fair. On the idea of, like, bottom vibes, can I quickly put, not Keaton, Caden, I think is the Conquest one, in bottom? On the idea of, like...
Do you want the Wolfskin or the Kitsune?
The Wolfskin. The Conquest guy.
Oh, that's Keaton.
Keaton?
Yeah.
Okay. Keaton and Caden, like, I get that they're supposed to mirror each other. Please make their names not sound the same. Intelligence systems. Challenge level impossible.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same with the FE7 Pegasus Knights.
Yeah.
But the enthusiasm, like, the sort of... I would almost describe it as autistic joy he has for, like, showing off and giving the gifts to people. I think that's a very... Oh, what do you think?
Well, I agree with putting him in bottom. And then I think, just like in how they're supposed to mirror each other, Caden goes in top.
I can see that.
Because Caden very much, like, they both have a lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the bedroom, I feel like Caden, it's much more likely to come out in, like, more likely for him to be the top.
He's got that enthusiasm that he channels into being a trickster. Like, in Conquest, he's like, okay, well, we gotta kill you. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I think those two definitely mirror each other like that. I need to do their rev support one day, because they have one, and they're both, like, they join together, and they're both, like, pretty decent.
Oh, really? I think they're both pretty ass in rev. But maybe I'm missing something.
No, they're okay. I mean, the main thing is just, like, they have solid bases in a game where a lot of the units up to that point have kind of bad bases. Like,
yeah.
They come right after Camilla and her retainers, who are, like, the first units, well, other than Reyna, who have, like, actually decent bases. And they're sort of, like, an extension of that. At the very least, like, they're pretty, like, nice to have on their join map, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I tend to think of the Wolfskin and Kitsune, well, Wolfskin specifically, as para bots more than actual combat units.
I mean, yeah, that's true for Keaton, at least. For Valoria, I definitely use her as more of, like, a combat unit.
That is fair.
But
speaking of a para bot in Rev, if you're gonna use her, she has to be one. Where do we put Nyx?
Hey, listen, anything's possible. She gets Hayato marriage. You can get home fair. You can do funny things.
Well, the reason I make her a parrot bot is I love using Hayato.
That's also fair. Have you ever tried Dark Knight Hayato? That's some fun shit.
Yes, it is. It is basically just the better version of Oni, because Oni's the tanky, like the tanky Hoshiden mage. Yeah.
But yeah, Nyx, honestly, I want to say Ace. And I want to say Ace because I feel like in a similar vein to what you said about Corrin earlier, and maybe now that I think about it, I guess I don't know what makes her so different from Corrin, but I don't know. This is just the first thought I had. It's like he's been very lonely for a long time, and like when she joins your party is kind of like the first time in a long time she's had to like cultivate relationships.
Yeah.
I just feel like she wouldn't really care about like, you know, having sex that much. I feel like she would just be very content with just having a partner. Like
especially since she like doesn't like the fact that she's been cursed into having this younger body.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like she would be very happy to just have a partner who's into her for who she is and not like having to think about anything physical.
For sure. I think, like, so I don't think she's, like, a child's body, right? It's just that she's cursed with eternal youth and people don't take her seriously.
Yeah, it's just, like, I think she's supposed to be just, like, a short teenager in terms of her appearance, not necessarily, like, a child.
Normally, I don't like tiering the, like, sort of Fa-esque units who it's like, oh, they're 10,000 years old, but they look like a child, but I don't think Nyx's design looks like an overly sexualized child, which is why, like, just to address the fact that we didn't put her in child tier.
Yeah, and she doesn't act like...
She doesn't act like one either, yeah.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me with that trope, is, like, if the character who looks like a child but is actually thousands of years old, if they act like an adult, I think it's fine and I don't have a problem with it. It's when they act like a child where I'm like, is this the writer's poorly disguised fetish, or...
It often is, yeah. Because they're like, oh, I'm so mad that people mistake me for a child based on only my appearance and not the fact that I behave like one, but you do behave like one. Like,
yeah, but Nyx is actually, like, not... She doesn't behave like a child, so...
No, not at all. She's very standoffish, but in a way that it's like, I'm old and done with your shit, more than, like, and also, like, child temper tantrum way.
Yeah, and also, like, clearly very, like, intelligent, too. Yeah,
I
know.
wouldn't say I
think
like
next-
her because like she does do some toxic shit. But I'm all for
Also,
Fire Emblem
also,
characters
she's an
doing toxic
awful-
shit.
Yeah, also she's an awful unit to use because skill moment.
Yeah, it is
Um,
tragic. Okay, unit with bad skill. I mean, we can talk about the Berserker Bros, who are basically the entire reason, like, I'm moving them up here. They're basically the entire reason that I even included capturable bosses on this, because Leloid and Leluin were, like, a meme ever since I used them as, fucking outlaws in the Heartseal reversal, and for some reason, the Duckface one dodged, like, 3 lethal 87s and then got a crit and a perfect level up. There's a
That's
clip.
really funny.
There's a clip somewhere on my channel. I think I even made it into a short, but it is, one of my favorite Fire Emblem memories. And as a result of that, I do need to tier them. And I think... what is the most complimentary of these tiers? Like, maybe they get their own tier that's just, like, pure Riz. That's a thing the kids say, right?
Yeah, sure.
I honestly, if we're going
No,
just
that's
off
good.
of in-game stuff, right?
Yeah.
They feel very much, it's the Bandit Bro stereotype. They're very childlike, they're kind of stupid, and I think that, especially Leloid, but I would say both of them, just haven't had a thought about sex in their life. Like, I think that they are the stereotypical, like, ace, but not necessarily because they're, like, sex repelled or sex neutral or whatever. They're, like, sex ignorant. They don't know it's a thing. They're trying to capture a dragon to sell for money, and then they, like, end up joining the army. I don't know. Like, they're even more unaware of sex than Arthur.
They still believe that the stork is gonna come one
Yup.
day.
They really do. They really do. They really do. Speaking of birds, Lilith.
Oh god, Lilith was a bird, wasn't she?
A weird-looking bird. Very
I just
weird-looking
remembered
bird.
that.
Well, no, she was a dragon. Like, her dragon form is what everyone thought was a bird.
That's so funny because it looks way more like a fish.
This right here.
How do you interpret that
How
as a
do you
bird
think
and not
that's
a fish?
a bird? In fact, we're gonna tier that. We're gonna tier that because that's her
We're
bird
gonna see
form.
this version. Yeah. I think.
Why do you think this is a bird? How stupid is everyone in Nor?
I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of evidence that everyone in Nor is pretty dumb.
There's a gas
But-
leak in the palace.
Yeah, something's in the water. I don't know. Yeah, so Lilith, I don't know. Maybe there's some like Fates, like side manga or thing that like fleshes out Lilith more. I don't know. I haven't seen it if it exists.
Well, but
As
you
much as
think that her character traits of liking rice and dying aren't enough?
Well, like, it's so funny because she's on every route.
Mhm.
She dies in 2 of them. She saves Corrin, like, pre-Branch of Fate, or, like, during that part.
And she's part
But
of
I
Corrin's
almost-
backstory, like, prior to that as well.
Yeah, isn't she also, I'm pretty sure, also related to Corrin? Like, sister or something?
Oh, right! Lilith is the product of asexual reproduction.
That's right. Now that you say it, yeah.
No, Lilith is a Nankos' kid.
That's right.
Lilith is a Nankos' kid, and she's the product of asexual reproduction, but also a Nankos is a Ret's father, I want to say? Or great-great ancestor, and then as a result,
I'm
also
pretty sure,
Makoto's, and as a result, also Azura and Corrin's. Like,
Right.
Lilith is absolutely part of that family tree, and she's part of asexual reproduction, which means maybe she reproduces asexually, like, that's the weird dragon thing, right?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I was gonna make the joke that despite all her presence, she should go in Who, because we just get so little of her. But now that you mention that, I feel like we kind of have to put her in Ace just because, like, maybe she's literally incapable of having sex.
Yeah, and, like, not obviously asexual people don't produce asexually, but it is too perfect.
I like how sometimes YouTube comments can be dumb enough to where you have to clarify that.
Most of those comments are shadow banned.
Yeah, fair enough.
Speaking of getting banned to the Shadow Realm, this guy right here.
Oh boy. Takumi. So, I want to say, and again, because his counterpart is Leo.
Yes.
And I really want to say that Takumi is like. I feel like he's like toxic top, but like he kind of, or at least in Birthright and Rev, he kind of realizes it and is like, doesn't want to be as like toxic, but it sort of comes from that because, I mean, for one, his personal skill is literally called competitive.
Yes.
But also like, I mean, it's all over the place with how he talks to Corrin and stuff.
Doesn't he reveal in a support that he was jealous of Corrin before Corrin was kidnapped? Which
no,
oh no,
that's in the he does do that, but it's in the endgame Conquest cutscene.
Oh yeah, okay. But I think that was
spirit.
like because like Corrin was kidnapped at the age of 1.
Yes.
So I don't think the Fates writers intended for Takumi to be jealous of a baby. I think that they just forgot about the chronology of the game they wrote. That's my theory.
Well, I think it sort of makes sense because it's like they basically, all of them, but also like Hinoka and like Mikoto especially, are like very focused on Corrin like getting kidnapped and stuff. And so I don't think it's like, oh, Takumi was jealous of Corrin as a person as much as it was like all of the attention was on Corrin and like he felt neglected.
That's fair. I will say, I know you were aiming for Toxic Top. Can I sell you on Toxic Bottom? Because I felt like the jealousy was sort of coming from that aspect.
I can see it.
Like, it's definitely toxic.
Yeah, he's got some shit he needs to work out, but
I think he's an interesting character. Like,
oh, for sure.
I wouldn't necessarily want to, like, share brunch with him or something, but I do like him as a character. Of the Fates characters, I think he gets some of the most fleshing out in the main story, and they do some interesting stuff with him. My favorite detail about Takumi, I'm sure you know this, but all of the when you're fighting royals in Conquest, the chapters are named after them. Hinoka, Sakura, and Ryoma have chapters that are just named Hinoka, Sakura, and Ryoma. Takumi's chapter is named, it's named like Betrayal or something, right? Or like Fallen?
It's called
Possessed. Yeah, it's called Possessed. Because you're not fighting Takumi. Like, he's already a Nankos.
Yeah. Also another really nice detail I like is, in the official, like the big official art for Fates, like the main promotional picture. It's Azura in the center holding up her lance, and it's like a shining light.
Yeah.
And all of the characters are looking at it except for Takumi, who is like everyone else is standing up and staring at it, and Takumi is like on his knees looking down at the ground.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah.
I do think it's disappointing that in Birthright, Takumi is still possessed, and there's not like someone in the Norian family got possessed instead. I think that could have been used to explain some of the character differences in how they're portrayed from route to route, because I do think that Xander and Camilla are like two different fucking characters depending on whether you choose Birthright or Conquest or Rev.
I never thought about that. I never thought about that, but Camilla being possessed in Birthright could actually be a really good plot point.
Because, like, she has that obsession with Corrin, right? Like, Takumi has the obsession based on jealousy. Camilla has her own form of obsession, which is in its own way unhealthy and very easily could be the key for Anonymous to get in. Like, it's so disappointing that there's so many things that could have been really cool if the writing team behind Fates wasn't just absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
But that's, we could rant about that for hours. Instead, we could rant about it until we're as old as the Rainbow Sage. How's that for a transition?
I'm gonna be honest, he's in all 3 routes, but only for one scene, and he dies in 2 of them.
He is a goofball, though. He does so he's like a trickster, right? Like, there's,
Sorta, yeah. He sorta, like, puts you... The main one is in Conquest, where he's disguised as a regular old man at the port.
And then it turns out you're in the tower already, right?
No, he's like, oh, the tower's over there up the mountain. And then you go there, and then when they get to the end, he teleports them back to his cabin at the port, and he's like, yeah, it was me.
Oh, gotcha. I like how he kills himself so that Corrin doesn't have to kill him. It's so fucking stupid.
Yeah, and then he just randomly lives in Birthright for some reason.
Because that's the good route, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Rainbow... Honestly, part of me just wants to say who.
Yeah, that's fair. We know who he is, right? But we don't know anything else about him.
Yeah. I do. Speaking of a funny goofball, though, let's do Odin next, shall we?
Oh, I love Odin.
I love Odin.
Unpopular opinion, I know. Everyone hates Odin, both as a unit and a character. I never see anyone high on Odin.
Well, that's the thing, is everyone loves Odin as a character. Like, that's definitely a cold take. I'm unironically super high on him as a unit, but, that's just... I don't know, that's a different discussion.
It is.
And probably a future video of mine.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah,
Even though I suspect I will disagree with your conclusions, I am excited. I always like hearing other people's takes on units, even the ones I disagree with.
Yeah. But yeah, Odin for this list, my instinct is switch. My instinct is Odin. I think some people might say Ace in the similar vein to Arthur.
Because he does have that obsession.
Yeah, and he's like a goofball, and he's like... But I don't necessarily think he's Ace, but I do think, because there's a number of his S supports where he does get kind of, easily embarrassed, or,
Yeah.
That kind of thing, which you could say bottom based off of that. But I don't think he would only bottom. I get the vibes from Odin that he could do either or.
Do you think he named this might be... I mean, we're over an hour of the video, so YouTube won't demonetize me. Do you think he names his sex moves? He absolutely does, right?
Yeah, as much as I hate to
and shouts them out every time.
Shouts
he does it with his combat, he definitely does it in the bedroom.
I hate to acknowledge that would be true, but it is. But yeah. Speaking of people who would be in the bedroom with Odin, let's talk about Laszlo.
Oh, hell yeah.
His boyfriend Laszlo.
I'm glad you're a bi Laszlo truther. I know it's never confirmed, but, it really... Especially when he's, because he compares the way in which Soleil is into women to the way in which he's into women, which could just be because he's hetero, but it feels to me like the writers were too cowardly to have them bond over shared bisexuality.
Yeah, and I also feel like generally, in pop culture writing, it's, weirdly more taboo to show, bi men compared to bi women.
It's because sapphic relationships can be titillating to men, but man-on-man relationships are less often seen as titillating for women. That's not to say that they aren't. Nina exists.
Well, also, and I actually think it's relatively even, but generally a lot of media will also just cater to men more.
Yes, yeah.
So,
I'm saying the perception, not the what I believe the reality.
Not the truth.
I believe that it is equally titillating. I just think the perception is like, I don't know.
But in terms of, I love Laszlo and Odin's relationship so much, both in Awakening and in this game, especially in this game.
I've never gotten them in Awakening, so I can only say I like it in this game, but I do.
Yeah, I love, like, their A support is, like, one of my favorites in the series, because they, like, call each other by their original names. It's so good. But anyways, Laszlo, I think Laszlo's 100% a bottom, and I think there's no way that he's anything else. Because literally his whole thing is that, like, he will flirt, but the second, like, he gets really easily embarrassed, and one of my favorite supports is also one of his supports with Selena, where she's basically like, I'm gonna show you how uncomfortable you can make women with your flirting, and she, like, flirts with him, and he gets extremely embarrassed.
Oh, me too. I love that. I love that line as well. Like, the only reason I'm not high on Selena as a unit, but the only reason I use her as often as I do is so I can pair them.
Yeah. So yeah, I think Laszlo's 100% a bottom.
Do we want to just cover the third of the Awakening kids?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Selena's, like, weird because I feel like the immediate reaction is gonna, for most people, is like, she's a tsundere, so therefore bottom.
That's the, like, wait, I thought tsundere was top. Isn't tsundere like the women who step on you?
No, that's a term I can't remember.
Okay. I don't know the terms. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just not into anime culture.
Right. I mean, I like barely know, because I'm like anime culture adjacent with a lot of my interests. But tsundere is like person who sort of appears like standoffish and like they don't care, but secretly they're like very much attracted to someone, and usually in a very like bottomy kind of way. And I think like Selena is sort of a tsundere in a way, but I don't want to say bottom.
Oh, hold on one second.
A few moments later.
I'm sorry about that. I had some technical difficulties with my cats fighting, but you were talking about Selena and how, despite the fact she's a tsundere, if I'm pronouncing that right, you don't think she's a bottom?
Yeah, I think in the bedroom specifically, and again, I don't have like any like hard evidence for this. This is just sort of like my interpretation of the character.
Which is perfectly fine.
I just really don't see her being like a bottom in the bedroom. I would honestly say top. If nothing else, especially in the relationship between her and Laszlo, like if you pair them, which a lot of people do.
Yeah. I mean, I do.
Yeah, like I think she's 100% the top in that relationship at the very least.
Although another character who people often pair her with is Tsubaki, because then you get the funny thing where she gives birth to her mother.
Yeah, which is funny.
How do you feel about Mr. Perfect?
I feel like Mr. Perfect isn't Mr. Perfect because he's like an awful unit.
He's so bad.
He's so bad. I love getting. I hate, by the way, we waited this long to have a male Pegasus Knight in this series, and the first one we get is. He's so bad.
This Shigure is pretty good. Like if you do certain builds on him.
Shigure is pretty good.
It's hard for the child units to be bad because you can make really cool builds with most of them.
Yeah, but Tsubaki, I love that Hinoka joins one chapter later with better bases and growths.
Yeah, he doesn't even have a time to shine in Revelations either, which is tragic.
Yeah.
As far as a character, he feels like not even as like a toxic masculinity thing, more like toxic obsession with perfection thing. I don't think he would be willing to be anything other than a top.
Yeah, I could almost see in the like you mentioned before, the pairing with. I could almost see like the competing top thing between the two of them.
Between him and Selena?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can have them just glare at each other. She can just angrily stare at him and be like, how dare you give birth to my mother? Well, I guess we can cover as well. Like, so, we covered the Conquest Awakening characters, right? And they are very distinctly and overtly the same characters. Like, they've jumped dimensions or something. I think it's stupid. But whatever.
Yeah, like, they get their own DLC, like, campaign where it's like, yeah, they swap dimensions. Although it also introduces a very dumb thing where there's like 2 Anankoses, one good and one evil.
Yeah, and they're in like a proxy war against each other.
Yeah, and then like the good one is the one that lets them dimension hop. It's dumb. Whatever.
I hate it. I really hate it.
Yeah.
That DLC is the reason why. I mean, them existing in the world, but that DLC in particular is the reason why I subscribe to the theory that the entirety of Fates is a story that was written by Odin / Owain. And that's also why they have different names, because they were self-inserts through himself, his boyfriend, and his girlfriend, because they are a throuple, like, let's be honest.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So he wrote himself and his boyfriend and girlfriend into the story, and, like, was really sloppy about it, but then halfway through he decided it was just going to actually be them, but didn't change the names. So, that's my interpretation.
Yeah,
and it also explains away all the bad writing.
Yeah, and also, like, I really don't like the Hoshiden Awakening-inspired kids, like...
Because they're not the same characters, it's weird.
Well, it's like, they are the same characters in terms of their writing, they're just not in terms of, like, in-universe. Which, like, at that point, like, just make them Gen 1 units and have Cordelia, Gaius, and Tharja
jump in as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's frustrating to me.
Yeah. What's even her name?
Kaldori. So, Kaldori, there's a line, because I do the Tsubaki Selena pairing, I did it once for, like, both for the funny and for a video, and there's a single line of dialogue where Selena says, like, oh, you look just like my mother, like, it must skip generations.
Yeah.
So, like,
they even acknowledge it.
It's so fucking stupid.
Yeah. Kildori also, it also doesn't help, but, like, all 3 of them, but Kildori in particular, I feel are just very boring.
Yeah. Both as characters and units, right?
As units, I like Asugi because he's, like, funny, like, ninja kid with a really high magic growth. Like, you can do funny, I've done fun things with, like, Butler.
Oh, Butler?
Yeah. Yeah, because you marry Saizo to Felicia. And you pass down, like, so she passes down Butler, and you do Shuriken Fair, Flame Shuriken. I'm
gonna have to try that if I ever use him again.
Yeah, it's good, and it's fun.
Yeah.
But Kaldori in particular, I just find extremely boring, both as a character and as a unit.
I like her in Awakening, to an extent. Like, the lover, the always yearning thing, but...
Yeah.
She lacks that here.
Yeah,
didn't
like, literally all she has is just, like, the joke that she's Tsubaki, but, like, actually perfect.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, but that's, like, all it is.
I guess, I guess since she's actually perfect, she's actually probably willing to acknowledge the fact that, like, life's more fun if you just do whatever you feel like, rather than having to be a top always. And I think she's willing to bottom and willing to top, just based on her mood.
Yeah, I think unlike Tsubaki, she doesn't really have, like, the insecurity about, like, having to be perfect or anything. So, like, she's not, like, really bound to being a top or a bottom by anything, so she just does whatever she wants.
Whatever she's in the mood for.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about Rashad. I put Gaius and Child, both because, like, how he's presented in Awakening is more childlike, and then especially how he's presented in Birthright. Most of the second-gen units, I think, are supposed to be adolescent, but there are a few that we've tiered because they seem to be intentionally, like, old enough to be adults.
Yeah.
But I know that, so I did the Gaius Midori pairing, and they have the very childlike thing where they're like, we'll be best friends forever. Yeah, we'll be best friends forever. Here, I'll give you a promise ring to promise we're best friends. And so it made me think, like, oh, this is literally just, like, a 13-year-old.
Yeah,
that's
like, I think
a child's idea of romance. So that's why he's in child and the other two aren't, to explain that.
Yeah, well, I'm also very glad that they went that route because they are, no matter what pairing you do, cousins.
Yes, that too. But I mean, also him with I did him with someone else as well, and they all come off as very much the child's view of romance rather than actually getting romantically involved. And I think that's like a good choice. I don't like the idea of like, you know, Percy having sex.
Yeah. Asugi, yeah, I feel, Asugi, like, looks a bit older than, say, like, Midori, but I do think they're supposed to be around the same age.
Yeah.
Rajat, I think it's weird because a lot of her stuff is, like, well, I mean, she's Tharja, right?
Yeah, she's Tharja.
Which, like, so a lot of her stuff is her doing, like, experiments and wanting to, like, being very, like, in control of stuff and all that, but also is, like, I would imagine, because of her obsession with Corrin, being, like, very submissive in that relationship specifically. But
I honestly think that she belongs in No Bitches.
Actually,
I think the way she treats people, like, you can marry her with Corrin, but I think that from the way she treats people, realistically, she would not find a partner.
Yeah, that's actually fair.
I think that, and if she did end up with a partner, it would be a very abusive relationship, which we see in Awakening with the way she treats her spouse and child. But I think that she's so overt in that she just would not. I find it unlikely that she would. She makes very bad first impressions. And then follows those up with bad second, third, fourth, and fifth impressions.
Yeah.
Like, I can't see myself or anyone dating her.
Also, real quick, I want to just real quick take a break from the real units and take all of the Birthright exclusive capturable.
Okay.
And put them in who?
So Funky Kong goes in. Okay, no.
Daichi?
Funky Kong goes in tops. Look at that face.
It's true. But like the fucking dude in the
Is
bottom
this
right,
guy?
the
Guy?
I think he's that's Conquest, dude.
Is this guy? I've never heard of this guy. I saw
the Selkie boss.
I know you did a draft recently that was like all three Fates routes together drafted, and I watched, and some of the capturables got drafted, I believe, and I didn't recognize any of them. Oh, was that someone else's draft then?
It was someone else's, but yeah, someone drafted Daichi, and yeah, a lot of people were like, "Who the fuck is that guy?" But yeah,
he's like Selkie's boss. It's so weird.
The guy on the right of Nicole, I think his name is Tabarn. He's the Shiro boss, I think.
Yeah. So I do the Shiro paralog a bunch. He is definitely the Shiro boss. I like that map for the first 2 turns, and then it's garbage. But he's also a nothing character. This guy's one, right?
He's Ophelia's, but
oh, is he?
Also, we
can also put him there though.
Yeah, but we could also put him there. There's like Kotaro, the guy next to Anna, but also like he is actually around for like the main story.
So Kotaro's not a paralog boss, right? Like he's the guy who killed Saizo's dad.
Yeah, he's the ninja boss. I guess we could talk about him. I really don't see him anywhere other than No Bitches.
Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page. Like, he's, again, much like Tharja, like, he's just such a dick. He's a conniving little bastard.
Yeah.
But I also think he's not interested, like, I think that he's No Bitches, parentheses, ace. Like, I don't think he's interested in anything than being a dick.
Right, but like even if he was, he wouldn't get any.
Oh,
right?
for sure,
Like,
for sure.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Ace, I actually do want to talk about a character who like isn't a joke.
Yeah.
Fuga.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously, like Hayato is, I'm pretty sure his son.
No, he's adopted.
Oh, adopted son though, right?
Oh, that was, sorry, that was really exclusive of me. You can be someone's child and be adopted. He is his adoptive son.
That's,
wow,
yeah.
that was, yeah, I am so sorry.
Well,
that
no,
was a
no, I get
knee-jerk
it,
and bad,
'cause-
well, I'm more apologizing to, like, anyone listening who's offended by that, because I'm offended that I would say that. Like, I will work to be
Right.
better. But yes, he is his son, he is his adopted son, yes.
I think Fuga, like, really cares about Hayato and really likes being a dad,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that, like, I would even go so far as to say he really wants to be a dad, and the reason he adopted Hayato is because he's Arrow Ace.
Yeah, I think he's not only Arrow Ace, but I think he's sex repulsed. Like, I get that read from him.
Yeah, I think he's just, like, a really friendly Arrow Ace dude. He wanted to have a kid, so he adopted Hayato.
Have you gotten their support chain?
I haven't, but
I like it.
Wait, did I? Oh no, because I drafted him in my all 3 routes draft, but I didn't draft Hayato.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll have to read their support chain one time.
It's not like, I'm not gonna say it's like peak writing or anything, but I do like it. As just a parent-child support, I think it's good.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that from a gameplay perspective, it gives him access to exactly one class and not one he wants to be in.
Yeah.
But
Oh well.
he doesn't, honestly, he's a good enough unit. He doesn't need any extra classes.
He really doesn't. Also, can we just go ahead and do the obvious, put Zola and Iago in no bitches?
I think that the tier was created for them.
Yeah.
God, these slippery little dinguses.
Yeah.
Does Gunter go there as well, is the question.
I don't think so.
He had a wife, right? Like that
He had a wife and
Garen
kids.
killed or something, and it was Corrin's
Yes.
fault.
It wasn't Corrin's fault, but like I think like that's the way Anonkus possesses him, is he has like anger towards Corrin that he knows is unjustified, but he has it anyways.
Yeah.
But I also, because like we talked about earlier, like, you know, obviously if you can still have kids and, you know, biological kids and all that.
Yeah.
I do think Gunter probably goes in Ace.
I buy it.
I don't think he, like, I think he probably, like, really obviously loved his wife and kids, but I don't think he ever, I think he just had sex because he just wanted kids, not for any other reason.
What do you think about... He's not Birthright exclusive, but we did knock out everyone else. He feels Birthright, right? Like, he's in a chapter that is a Birthright chapter, even if it's available on all routes. Nicol.
Yeah. Nico's weird because I don't think he's no bitches, but, like...
I mean, with that stat
Part of-
line, he can't be no bitches.
Yeah, true.
So good.
I don't know, part of me just wants to kind of say top.
I buy
Maybe
it.
in a similar vein to Daniela and Candace.
So there's actually, like, this square of capturables in top.
Yeah, actually.
You mentioned that you know who this guy is. I'm just gonna knock out the capturables so we can talk about the more interesting units.
Yeah.
This is who?
Zara, I believe, Soleil boss.
Oh, yeah.
He's, like, so unremarkable gameplay-wise that I, like... He has, like, really weird combinations of skills that's, like, Pass and Soul or something weird.
In Heart Scale Reversal, he got turned into a Berserker, so I captured him because he just had nutso stats.
Yeah, that's funny. I honestly, I think we just put him in who?
I think that's fair. Do you think the same is true of Kumagira?
No, because I'll be honest, Kumagara's design is rad.
I agree.
I think he looks awesome.
Who gets to benefit from this rad design then? who's blessed with the presence of Kumagera. There's room in any of these.
Yeah, I don't know. Because obviously, you know, we don't get too much of him. He almost feels like a boss. He almost feels like an NPC that should have appeared at some point in Birthright.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be, like, a high-ranking, like, Hoshidan military person.
It is kind of weird to me that neither route's, like, capturables appear in the other route as, like, a playable. Or
even
green
just an
unit.
NPC.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just go off vibes and I'll say Switch.
I buy it. God, that design is so cool, though.
It is, yeah.
Hayataka. Rally defense, that is an active service. We're putting him in bottom. Boom. That's all of the... Oh, no. You go in who? I don't even recognize you. Kilma balls!
And Felicia's dad. Yep. Flora and Felicia's dad. I don't know, yeah.
Yeah. Do we want to cover Flora? Since we talked about Felicia, we just talked about her dad.
Yeah, Flora, to me... Because... Felicia, I get Ace vibes. Flora, I think, is more so... Flora, I think, is bottom.
I buy it.
I think Flora... Because I think... Here's what I think about... And while we're at it, we can do Jacob, too.
Sure.
Who I think also goes in bottom.
Yeah, paired with each other.
Yeah.
He's hidden from me now because this is too fat.
Third from the left?
I only get to see the top half of their heads.
I've played this game to such an unhealthy amount that I couldn't recognize any Porter Sprite. But yeah, I think, here's what I think about the three servants. I think, like we said before, I think Felicia's ace.
Yeah.
I think Flora really likes doing acts of service, and is a bottom in that way. I think, and I just really don't like Jacob. I think Jacob is like the degenerate, like, step on me mommy kind of bottom.
Oh...
You know, like that kind of straight dude.
I can see that. I can also interpret, like, the you must play by all of my rules top, just because of his, like, obsession with butlering. But I'm going to leave him in bottom as an insult.
Yeah, I almost wanted to say no bitches, but he literally can, so...
Yeah, he definitely can. That fast support, he's the fastest person to get an S support, actually. Like him and Kaze, right? They're tied?
Yeah, and also, like, it's really weird that he doesn't have a support with Flora.
So we do also have that nice split of, like, 2 maids in bottom and then 2 maids in ace. Because you forgot about Corrin's 4th maid. Lilith,
True.
The most important character.
Most important Fates character.
Do we just want to go down the line? We got Shigure.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say we could go down the line of the corn sexuals. The ones
Oh,
that are
sure.
left. So we could talk about, like, Shura next.
Yeah.
Mr. Bootsman.
I do recognize his hair.
Yeah.
It's very distinct. Skunk hair.
Shura...
I mean, so he turns into a pair of boots as a reference to the foot lore. We could put him in bottom as a result of that.
Also, I will say, in Conquest, if you don't turn him into boots, he tells Corrin something along the lines of, like, I forever. Like, he's like, I'll do whatever you want. Like,
you cut out there, but I think you were saying, like, it was a pledge for his entire life, right?
Yeah.
Servitude or whatever?
Yeah, it's like a pledge of, like, servitude to Corrin if you spare him. Sounds pretty bottom to me.
I agree. This is
Yukimura.
Makoto's other retainer, right? Yukimura?
Yeah, Yukimura.
I want to put him in
AKA
who?
leadership star
Yes,
unit.
yeah.
Yeah, I almost want to say
no
bitches, because the dialogue that he does get, he's usually, like, pretty rude and, like, stuck up. but like not in a charming way like Leo can be. Like he's just an asshole.
Can we talk about the fact that in Revelations, the reason he's not recruitable is he's left behind to defend all of Hoshido on his own?
That is very funny.
He's the only unit, he's the only named character who stays behind. Well, I guess unless you count, like, you know, maybe that's why Kumagera isn't, like, an NPC, is he's helping out Yukimura. Why didn't we get that DLC of, like, all the capturable bosses in Yukimura holding off Han's army or whatever?
Yeah. Also, speaking of Korean sexuals who don't get to play in Rev.
For no reason.
For some reason. Yeah. Izana.
Guess I'll die.
Yeah, I think he's ace.
Yeah.
Like, I really like his personality. He's a very fun guy.
Oh, I don't like his personality, but that's fine.
Really?
Yeah, I find him annoying.
That is fair. But I think he's I don't think he ever like is interested in sex. Like at all. I don't get the vibe.
And neither is Anna. She's in here for the money.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
no version of Anna has ever cared about anything but money.
True.
That's my Anna take.
Mm-hmm.
Cause she's corn sexual in this, right? Or she might be like completely supportless. I don't remember.
No, I think she has a corn support. I think the supportless one is Three Houses Anna.
Yeah, I know Three Houses Anna's supportless, and then like, Awakening Anna is in this weird place where she's not quite a Robin sexual, cause she can support Tiki, and that's it. There's there's this weird thing with the Avatar sexual people where they can support one person.
Yeah, like Gunter has a Jacob support.
Mm-hmm.
And Fuga has the Hayato one, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean Fuga Hayato just makes sense.
Yeah,
like
but
his
so
son.
Does Jacob Gunter. But yeah, I think Anna has the corn support. I've never read it. I've never actually used Anna.
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely play or use any of the DLC stuff.
I've never used her.
Yeah. Apparently she's pretty good. Apparently she's like Niles, but with better stats.
Mm-hmm. That sounds okay then. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's pretty good.
She's definitely not as good as she was in Awakening, but that's pretty hard.
Yeah, because Awakening Anna is like a pretty good unit.
Top 5.
Yeah, she's really good.
Not top 5, but person I like. We can pretend he's top 5 because of that. Where's Shigure go?
I think he goes where you had him, right
Ace?
there in Ace, actually.
Yeah.
I get vibes from Shigure. First of all, I do really like Shigure as a character as well.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite part of Heirs of Fate is when they set up Kana to be the protagonist, and then they realize that Shigure is infinitely more interesting, and they switch to him instead.
He also has a unique sprite because he has the locket.
Yeah. I like Shigure a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I sort of... I guess you could make the argument that he's, like, sort of a pleaser person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, switcher bottom, but I don't know. I just don't think I don't think he's interested.
I buy that. I think he's more interested in, like, honing the various hobbies he has, whether that be singing or Pegasus riding or any number of other things.
Yeah, and also, like, I think if he is gonna have a relationship, I think if he has a relationship, he'll be, like, a very romantic person.
Mm-hmm.
Just not in any sort of sexual way.
Completely valid.
Nina, on the other hand, I think Nina straight up, like, goes into top.
Sure.
I think...
All I know about her is her gimmick, so this is all you.
Yeah, so... She is into, like, the whole, like, you know, men together thing. But
yeah.
Also, just more generally, she sort of takes after her father, just in terms of, like, the, you know, wearing her heart on her sleeve kind of thing, just in a less explicit way.
Yeah, she's not as, like, dirty-minded, but she's still very blunt, I guess might be the word for it.
Her focus is very much, like, more, like, if, like, Niles is dirty-minded,
mm-hmm.
but, like, Nina's focus is more on the romance than anything else. But I do think that, like, she does definitely give me the vibe.
Yeah.
In her own relationship, she'd be the top.
I agree with those vibe reads. Hana probably wants to be a top, but if we're being realistic, she is a bottom.
Yo, you know what Hana is? I've got the read.
Yeah?
She's the person who calls herself a switch, but she's actually a huge bottom and just doesn't want to say it.
It's the meme of, are you actually a switch, or are you just such a bottom that you're willing to top your partner in order to please them?
True, yeah. Yeah, no, she absolutely gives me those vibes.
Am I wrong to say it runs in the family and Saizo is also asexual?
It might be, honestly. Cause, I don't know, Saizo's also just an asshole in general.
Yeah, a
he
little
can be
bit.
funny sometimes with it, but a lot of his support, especially like a lot of his S supports with certain units are very like, he's just a dick. But
what about the Baruka C support?
Okay, people hate that support. I think it's extremely funny.
No, I love it. Oh, wait, people hate that? I love that.
No, it's like the parry thing where people take the too seriously.
Jesus Christ.
And they're like, oh, this is an example of how the Fates writers are lazy and like, you know, it's their one character trait. And I'm like, guys, this is
the funniest thing
hilarious.
in the fucking world. The other thing that if people were gonna get mad, right? I've heard that it is different in Japanese, that it's not just ... in Japanese. And so I imagine that people would get mad for like weird censorship things. But like, it doesn't feel like censorship, it just feels like it's funny.
Yeah, it's a very funny joke.
It's a very funny joke. Honestly, I was disappointed that the B support wasn't the same thing. Like, I really wanted the entire support chain to just be that, and then the S support to be like, hey, I kind of like you. You're quiet. I kind of like you too. You're also quiet.
Yeah.
And then they get married.
To be fair, I don't know if you've ever done
joke.
this paired ending, but Dedu and Shamir in Three Houses is like that, but like more serious.
No, I've never done it, but I have looked up, for a video I'm working on, I've looked up the various endings, because there's a resource where you can check out everyone's endings, and I looked at theirs because I was trying to figure out stuff around Shamir, and it is the most fucking adorable paired ending I have ever seen. I love that shit.
Yeah, well, not just the paired ending, but also just the actual support scenes in general are really good between them.
I really like that.
Yeah. But yeah, Saizo and Baruka is like a more goofy version of it, which is also fine.
I mean, Fates is a more goofy game than Three Houses, so I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, and yeah, Baruka I think we should also knock out next.
I guess this gives away my thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, well, I think Ace is a pretty fair interpretation. My thoughts was always like, she's a top, but I never, like, I feel like she doesn't care about sex that much.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I feel like she would top, but also, like, in a relationship between her and Saizo, I feel like Saizo would be like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And Baruka would just be like, okay, that's fine. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Ace is a pretty fair place to put her as well.
Okay, we can knock out the rest of these ding-dongs. Orochi. I get top vibes. I don't know why, I can't explain it.
I do too. I think she's supposed to be like a Niles counterpart, because she's also the capturer. She's
also kind of a jerk.
Yeah, like kind of blunt and stuff, but I don't know. I don't like Orochi as a unit, and so I've never her or looked into her supports.
And not only that, but like not only is she a worse unit on her own, but capturing in Birthright is a lot weaker. Because of the weaker enemies.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on Hinoka?
Hinoka, I don't know, man. Hinoka's like, to me, is like the least interesting Fates Royal.
She's like the outcast, but then like they don't do anything with it.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to say Ace because a lot of her character, like from what I have seen in her supports and stuff, is that like she is very like battle focused. and also just very, like, I want to say self-focused, but as an insult, like a self-improvement
Yeah.
focused kind of person.
I think she feels insecure because she's sort of placed as an outsider amongst the royals.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I don't know. I think Hinoka probably isn't really very interested in sex, just interested in like her hobbies and her self-improvement and all that.
Can we put dipshit and no bitches? I don't like this guy.
Okay. I get why people don't like him. I think he's super funny. But, like, I get why people don't like him, and he does belong in No Bitches.
I sort of feel back and forth, because I do like when there are unlikable characters in Fire Emblem. But for him in particular, I don't know why something about him rubs me the wrong way. When I do like a lot of the unlikable cast, right? Like, I like Kotaro as a villain.
Yeah.
I like
he has my
some of these
favorite...
shitters, like Perry. I like Perry, okay?
Yeah.
I'll say it.
He has my favorite private quarters line, which is, he says, like, that was a very enlightening conversation. Too bad you were completely wrong about absolutely
Okay, never mind. I love this guy now.
I love him. He's so good.
No, I love him now.
He is No Bitches.
I love him now. Okay, dude, man. What is this guy's character trait? He's not Pickles, right? His kid's the Pickles.
No, that's his son. Hinata's character trait is that he's the straight man to Obero's, like, funny, but also just, like, xenophobia. And, like, he just plays straight man to Obero. But,
that's
like,
so boring.
It is, but also, like, I think Obero is a bottom, and if you're gonna pair them, he's probably the top.
That makes sense. I was gonna go with Switch just because, like, you could fill whatever role, but I think tops, bottoms makes more sense.
He also sort of has, like, mainly in his crit quotes and his battle lines, he sort of has, like, the same, like, enthusiasm that Kaden does.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think tops is probably fine.
Effie, I think she's a service bottom.
Yeah, I actually think it's similar, if I'm remembering correctly, to what you said about Titania in your Tellius one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she's just like, you know, just because she's strong and fierce on the battlefield doesn't mean she's that way in the bedroom, you know?
She wants someone to treat her like the lady that she knows she is.
Yeah.
Just because she doesn't act like it when she's in her armor doesn't mean she can't act like it when she's in the pajamas.
Yeah. Kagero is funny 65% growth unit. And that's about all I know about her.
Growth. I've linked her up with, I paired her with, I think it was Jacob? Yeah, I paired her with Jacob in my most recent Rev run so that I could have a really high strength Butler Dwyer that was very funny and bad.
If I remember, there is, like, the only support I distinctly remember with her is her support with Saizo, because they are both Ryoma's retainers, but they are also both exes who, at the end of their support chain, get back together.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they understand each other better. Which, to be fair, is interesting, and it is got a support chain like that.
Yeah.
In terms of,
I feel like she's not Ace, though. Like, part of me, from that, I'm making multiple leaps, right? But from that, part of me feels like some amount of what led to their breakup was unreconcilable and ununderstanding around Saizo's asexuality versus Kagero's allosexuality, right? And that through learning each other better, they're able to figure out how to make a relationship between an ace person and an allo person work. Because they can be very productive and meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
But it does take hard work and understanding.
Yeah, like, for sure, like, I even have that experience where, like, I once dated, like, an ace person, and, like, at first it was, like, a little, like, we did have to, like, sort of talk about things and, like, work things out, but after we did, like, it was all fine and good, you know, like, broke up for unrelated reasons, but, like, you know, I've had that experience. Yeah, in terms of how she actually leans, part of me wants to say top.
I'll go for it. I was going to go switch off of the strength of the haircut pattern alone, but
you know what? That is
and
true,
the mask
actually.
too, like one eye here.
That is true. And
but
also,
I think top works.
This is extremely stretching, but hear me out.
Okay, I'm listening.
In all 3 routes, she is captured and tied up by Kotsuro.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, she doesn't like that, being captured. Maybe the tied up part? If it's someone she likes?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe? I could see it.
Yeah, maybe, I mean, so, like, Saizo rescues her in all of them as well. Like, in all 3 routes, he's a part of the rescue mission. To say he rescues her in Conquest is an exaggeration, because he goes and hangs out in gay baby jail so that you can get speed wings.
True, I love the gay baby jail strat.
I love it because he's frustrating otherwise.
Well, I love it also because it's like, I feel like it's one of the few times in an FE game with like a suicidal green unit where you can just be like, no, I refuse to deal with this.
So true.
I'm getting my side objective reward whether Saizo wants me to or not.
Okay, but the funnier though, is I've seen clips of Saizo killing him. Green Saizo killing the boss.
That can happen too, yeah.
I think I'm gonna lean top because Akira and I established a rule when I did a tier list with her that damsels get to be tops, and you've convinced me to follow that rule. So Kagero gets to be a top. Even if she did discover that she enjoys being tied up, I think that, you can do that in a top way. If you're top enough, you fucking know how to.
Yeah, at the very least, like, if she bottoms, it's probably like a power bottom kind of thing.
For sure. But I think that is our list. Again, don't let this stand in the way of your own headcanons. The last thing I would want to do is that if you're a big fan of Daichi top, like, we can move him there.
No, I'm not gonna judge you for it. I will be confused.
I will ask why.
But it's not from a place of judgment.
It's a shame that a design that goes this hard is wasted on a unit who goes in who.
Yeah.
Because I love that design. It goes very hard, but also, who the fuck is he?
Well, it's the same with Iago. Like, as much as I don't think Iago's a great villain, goddamn, that's a good villain design.
Yeah. No, I can... I can agree with that. This is a very good design. Like, god damn it. Why did they have to waste it on this character? Also on this game and this game's writing. But even, there are characters in this game who are, like, more fun to spend time with, despite the shit writing around them.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's plenty, like, I like Reina.
Mm-hmm.
I love her design.
Yeah, I hate the fact that she doesn't have any... Maybe part of why... Okay, maybe part of why you like her is that they didn't have enough time to ruin her with awful writing. With only one support chain, there's less time to ruin her. But if you are... if you have any thoughts, leave them below in the comments. I am trying to make this a series with every game in the series, so if you are an LGBTQ Fire Emblem creator, whether that's YouTuber, modder, whatever content creator, I'm not going to gatekeep what content creation counts as, artist counts, musician counts, all that fun stuff, and you're interested in joining me on this and some other game that I haven't covered, reach out to me on Discord. My Discord is linked below, and I have DMs open as long as you share a server with me, so I would love to collaborate. If you are interested in checking out Blue's stuff, her channel, Cosmic Blue, is linked below as well. You should check that out, because it's some very high-quality content. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you know when the next video goes up, because I wouldn't want to miss it. I don't like missing them. I missed one, and I'm sad about it, so I hit the bell, and now I won't. And regardless, I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yeah, and one last thing I just want to say, thank you, Danny, for having me on for this. This was really, really fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun putting it together. despite the fact that it was very, very long, I think it was a very fun conversation, and I learned a lot about these characters in this game that I haven't super dove into the characters on. Especially the Birthright cast, because I don't like playing that game. People are gonna get mad at me for saying that, but I don't.
See, people hated Jesus because he told the truth, okay?
True. True.
But you know who people don't hate? My patrons. Thank you to Gameboo, Fyrant, Cordelia Frey, Smaz Ruby, Saxon, Serphiu58, Reflect, Robin Cars That Drive, Lovely Crow, Jamie Collins, Herc, Marin Karen, Thick Molder, Danielle Kalaskis, Jagan is an Est, Julia Kyoto, Arvis, Tailored Muffin, George Grenville the 7th PM, SUP, Caius Cole, Gabe the Green, Control Alt Aegis, Joanna the Wrench Witch, Juniper Jungby, Ginger, Autumn Kelsey, and Noah Watson. Without you, I wouldn't be able to do this job. Also, I'm very sick, so if I sound a little bit raspy in this video, that is why. If you are interested in supporting the channel and getting access to early videos, a couple of behind-the-scenes things, voting on what videos I produce next, and some benefits that are too spicy for YouTube, there is a link to my Patreon below, but please only subscribe if you have the money to afford to do so. Otherwise, you can just subscribe here on YouTube, because that one's free. And regardless, have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care, gamers.